Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, and let's just do another separate little miniature feature video on the PlayStation 5. There's so many cool little things that are worth talking about, that are worth separating from the overall breakdown of the system itself. You can go over and watch our 20-minute-ish console breakdown, the full system review that I would totally recommend, but I'm going to be doing a few of these extra videos to just sort of parse out the talking points that I think will emerge from the system itself. So for this one, I want to talk about the way that Sony has approached backwards compatibility. I mentioned this in the review, but the whole tagline that they put out, the whole company line, was that 99% of games will work on the PlayStation 5, which, they then put a list out of which games wouldn't work on the PS5, and it was only like 10 to 15 titles. And the assumption was, just through the sheer wording of it, and I apologize if this is super obvious, to me, I didn't get it until I got hands-on with the PlayStation 5, but the way that they phrased it, where it was 99% of all PS4 games will work on the PS5, the reality of that is that anything that worked on the PlayStation 4 will work on the PlayStation 5, not specifically PS4 games. What I mean by that is that you might have bought a much older game on your PS4, for example, all the emulated versions of PS2 titles that are available, games like GTA 3, Rockstar put a bunch of stuff on there, there's Max Payne, The Warriors, Bully. You can access those older titles and still play them on a PlayStation 5 because the system classes it as a PS4 game. Once you start going through your game library, you'll notice that the icon next to the likes of GTA 3, Dark Cloud, Ape Escape 2, whatever, come up as a PS4 game, even though obviously we know that that wasn't the case. The overall point to make, though, is that Sony have, in a roundabout way, come up with a way to let you access multiple generations of titles on the same system. Obviously, you have to pay for them separately. It's a far cry from being able to put the disc in like you can on an Xbox system, and that's obviously vastly preferable to rebuying your entire library again. But if you're thinking, well, I bought these previous titles, were they going to work, were they not? They actually are. One thing that stands out when you scroll through your entire game library, and I have literally hundreds of titles at this point, you will see padlocks and error symbols over more than the initial slate of titles they said wouldn't work. They have noted in various press materials that I've had access to before I filmed this, that it's going to be on the publishers and the developers to sort of, it's going to be on them to figure out ways to get their titles working on PlayStation 5. So the list of stuff that isn't working is bigger than the initial list they put out, but that will hopefully change going forward. Point being, though, that if you've amassed a multi-generation backlog of titles, the vast majority are playable on here. And depending on when a certain other video comes out, I think this will be going out after it, I did manage to get one of the PS4's most treasured titles working on the PS5. And so, like I said, you can go all the way back to PS2 titles that were emulated and put up on here and make them work again. Something to note that I found out when, like I said, I accessed that particular treasured title, you'll be able to find the video on the channel by now, is that some games, when you go on them, it pops up and literally says, this game isn't playable on PlayStation 5. That isn't always true. If you've had access to that game file beforehand, if you had it on your PlayStation 4, and you're copying the file across, whether that be through Wi-Fi or you've managed to do the Ethernet connection thing, as long as the system can recognize the file, you can get around this whole prompt, the way that this thing is phrased, saying that this game won't work, because it literally will. As you'll see in the other video that I did, as long as you can get the file onto your PlayStation 5 at all, the system architecture does seem to figure out what that game is. So all hope isn't lost if you get this initial prompt saying that something won't work. There's obviously a key distinction to be made between games that were emulated from the past that you can access, those original games that were just sort of re-released to be played again, versus things that get remastered or touched up or completely overhauled, the likes of, the Crash Insane trilogy or Spyro's Reignited trilogy. There's so much work still to be done, and I think it's one big grey haze between, being able to access digital versions of old games versus what constitutes a remaster, what now constitutes a full-on remake. I think that conversation will extend into the next generation, but I like the idea that, at least on Sony's side, I guess they've done the bare minimum by just letting you still play the games that you own, but I like that they do have a system now that will let you just play everything in one place, kind of like what the PS4 was starting to do, as across the previous generation we saw Sony start to release, like I said, the likes of PS2 titles and things like that, games that on the Xbox side you could just buy for 50 pence or $1 or whatever it is, and just put it in the system and it would work. Sony's response was, well, we're going to charge you for it, but we are going to put some of these old games back on the store. I can't talk about the PlayStation Store just yet. I will in an upcoming video because it's being changed a lot, pre-release to what it's going to be like when everybody else gets their hands on it. But I do hope that they visualize this stuff more and they clarify their exact approach to backwards compatibility. Because for now, it is cross-generational, providing you own digital versions of these games. That might change going forward. I guess we'll wait and see. But for now, if you want to play old school PS2 games on your PS5, you absolutely can, and that's awesome. So yeah, this is just one of the many things that I thought was worth spotlighting on the side as a worthwhile talking point, because going forward, like I said, hopefully Sony will do even more with it. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below as to backwards compatibility and which other titles you would like to see on the PS5, and I'll catch you soon.